Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to take a look at a new set of markers. It's a big set. It's kind of a lot. It's kind of exciting, but I'm always curious about large sets of alcohol markers, especially when they are inexpensive and especially if they have a brush tip. This is the Art Beak 262 color alcohol markers for kids and adults, brush-262. This is from Amazon, and the company had contacted me and asked me if I would be interested in reviewing this set of markers, and I said sure, because I like to have a good comprehensive amount of reviews on my channel. If you go on my channel and you search almost any brand of alcohol markers, you're probably going to find a review on them. And just keep in mind that I would also recommend when you look at a review that you look at other people's reviews too. And when you go to Amazon, if they are sold on Amazon, you look at most recent reviews just in case quality has changed since the review that you're seeing online is posted. I've reviewed Art Beak classic markers in the past, the ones with the chisel and the bullet tip, and they were pretty run-of-the-mill, but they were great. They were fine. They worked. They blended. There was no issues. Yeah, I'm always down for a brush tip. They're easier to blend with. They're easier for people to learn on. And with the recent issues Copics had with their markers drying out and the caps not fitting tight or having cracks in them or whatnot the last couple of years, less apt to recommend Copic markers, especially if you're on a budget, because, you know, a set like this set of 262 markers is going for around $130, but there was a $30 coupon on last time I checked on Amazon, so that might still be applicable, bringing these markers down to about 38 cents a piece, which I think is pretty amazing. Full price, they're 50 cents a piece, which for a brush tip is pretty crazy. You can't even buy a replacement nib for that price for a Copic marker, so let's see how they are. So when you open it up, when you first get these in the mail, your markers are going to be a mess. They're going to be everywhere because there are there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little holders in here. They're holding these markers upright and in order. If it was one big one and the case was a little tighter, they probably wouldn't fall out. But when I got this, the markers were, some were in the case, some were well, they were all in the bag, but some were in their little holders, some were tipped over. There were so many colors. I was very confused as to how I was going to organize them. First, I tried putting them in kind of color family order, but that didn't, that was just too difficult because the caps were so similar. I couldn't tell if, like, say like a pink was more purpley, I mean a neutral color was more purpley or more pinky or more orangey or more yellowy or more greenish. It was very difficult to tell. So I ended up putting them in number order. Actually, what I did was I went on Amazon and I printed out this page. This was what I did was I clicked on the little thumbnail on their advertisement, you know, the little cards, and I right-clicked on it and I printed it, and that way I could go through and see if I had all the colors, because something that was kind of strange, and I emailed the company about this, was that it says 262 pieces, but there's only 260 alcohol markers in here. The other two pieces are a white gel pen and a black fine liner. Has a fine tip on one end and a bullet tip on the other end. These work great under and over the alcohol markers. This works great over the alcohol markers. It looks totally cheap. It feels totally chintzy, but they work great. But this is like what 2 of the markers are. So there's 260 markers, and then there's 2 pens. So that's something to keep in mind. So when I was looking at this chart, I'm like, how come there's 262 boxes filled in here? How come there's not, you know, I was just kind of like, oh, so I had to put these all back in order and go through and just make sure I had every color. So I ended up, and I emailed the company before I did this, and I said, I have 262 markers and and a white gel pen and a black fine liner. Is that what the 262 refers to, or are there supposed to be 262 markers plus 2 pens? And they said that was correct. It's 260 markers plus the 2 pens for a total of 262 pieces. And they said, this is a very new venture for us. You may have a couple doubles in there as well. So that made me a little concerned. So I very painstakingly swatched this over the course of 3 days. It was no joke. It took forever. It seemed like it took forever. But what I wanted to do was to swatch these all out, put them in order, cross-reference them to the chart I had here, and make sure I wasn't missing anything. Now, a couple numbers were printed on twice. So, and then I did have 2 of number 134, but it worked out that I had that I had all the colors. So yeah, like 20 was on twice. 89, the 98 color was on twice. It was, yeah, it was just kind of, it's kind of weird. I think they just kind of put this on there as an idea of what you're going to get. But one thing you'll notice is these color numbers, they probably look very familiar to you because these are used in many, many marker brands. I think there's only so many factories that make markers in China. And there's like, you know, a few different companies that are making the inks. There's a few different designs for the bodies. And that's why when you're kind of in the budget marker realm, you're going to keep seeing the same product kind of show up over and over again. So the color range here is the same color range that Artix uses. It's the same color range that Art and Fly uses. It's the same color range Coleco, Artix, Parku. The very first Ohuhu markers use this range too. They've changed their numbering system though. Touch New uses this set. The old concept markers from Jerry's, which I'm not sure if they've clearanced those out or not because they came out with a new version that uses a different numbering system, but the old concept markers from Jerry's use this system. And the Art Marker brand uses this system, and these actually have the same body as the Art Marker brand. The Art Markers were black, and these are white. And the Art Markers used to be sold at like AC Moore. I think maybe that Five Below store might sell them. But yeah, so you kind of get used to that. Now these are a dual-ended brush and chisel, and I'm going to pull up the Color Splendor because I'm going to show you the blender there. So we've got a brush tip and we've got a chisel tip. Now the brush tip is just like the Ohuhus, although it does feel a little bit spongier than my Ohuhu. It is that dual end one. So if you damage one or you fray one, you just turn it out and you put it in the other way. Which came in handy because on one of these markers, the nib was looking pretty rough and I just pulled it out and put it in the opposite way. I think there's just not, when you're working on like a 37-cent marker, there's not a ton of quality control. I don't know if these are put together by people or put together by machines, but I can see how a nib could get damaged. I have a Winsor Newton watercolor marker and those puppies cost like $6 a pop and I had a damaged nib on one of those. And I mean, if somebody puts the cap on wrong or a machine, I guess probably enters in a machine, it could damage a nib. But that was only the case with one. Now I had one marker that was kind of messed up. And it's this guy right here, Forest Green. Now, if you look at the color chip, that's clearly a green, but if you look at the swatch, it is a blue. And what I did here was I took some vinyl sticker paper and I cut little labels so I could color my hand color swatch here, but then I could also make a label to put on each of my markers so I wouldn't have to be hunting down the swatches while I'm coloring. So I'm like, that color does not look right. I'm familiar with this numbering system and I know 50 should be more of a greener teal. And so I went to my other markers and I looked at, this is that color right there. And I'm like, that's not right. And plus this marker, the weird thing about this one, the chisel nib was not inked at all. It had no ink on it. It like couldn't reach the center part of the sponge on the inside to ink up. So, I swatched out the brush tip and then I found that same color 50 in Artix and that's the color it was. I used Sanjoki, that's the color it was in Sanjoki, and this was the old Ohuhu. So these were all number 50s. So I'm like, yeah, it should look more like that. So I could take some alcohol ink I already have, like some green, and I could fix it so it's that color, but I decided just to leave it since I've already swatched it. Plus I didn't want to do that before filming the review. And then to fix the fact that the chisel end was not inked, what I did was I took out the chisel end, which I can do now because my fingers will be all blue because this was not colored at all. And then I whacked my marker, I capped it and I whacked it on the on my counter, and that let the sponge kind of shift down. So what I think is it was just up too high. And also I noticed on this side the nib was out a little bit too far, so I just, after I did that, I pushed the nib in a little bit more so it would be so it wouldn't be hanging out too far and risk getting damaged. So this color I'm sure is off. Let's see what 50 says. Well, their chart 50 shows it more of like a blue like we have here than that. So maybe they've changed their system. I don't know, but that was a little weird because I have these other markers that are definitely more of a greener teal. But that was the only marker that was really messed up. I had one that had like a little bit of a frayed tip, like I said, and I just pulled out the brush nib and put it back in. So I went the extra mile of putting swatches on each of my markers because the caps are not going to be that accurate, especially when you have so many colors. They just can't capture that color, the color differential in plastic. Not at this price anyways. I mean, Copic and like Blick Studio do a pretty good job at it. I'd say Copic probably has the best, most accurate plastic color chips on the end, but I mean, 37 cents. What do you... I'm really not going to complain about that. This takes a little bit of time, and then I know I've got the exact right color there. I could pull out one of these racks to show you. So you've got 4 racks that are like this plastic trays that are divided. So these will hold your markers in the order that you want to put them in, which I like, because like with the Ohuhu big bags, there's like some loose containers, right? And so you like I organize them by color, but they're all kind of jumbled in there. These will keep them all nice in a row. You can't really store this on its side though, unless you put something inside this bag that's going to keep these markers from flipping. I think if you tip it on your side, they're going to fall out. Then you're going to have to reorganize them. So you definitely want to. We can try it. You guys want to try it? I really don't want to reorganize these, but I've already put swatches on the marker. So if it happens, then I've got my swatches on the markers, and I don't have to have it correspond with anything. But maybe if we're careful, let's see, if we're careful and we're using these and we are at home and we want to store these, I think if we did that and we put them for storage like that on our shelf, and then when we went to before we didn't unzip them like this, then when we went to use them, we tip them down gently. We can do that. We can do that and store them. Okay, that'll work. Let's make sure they haven't fallen out. No, that's going to work. Okay, so just be careful if you want to. It's a good idea to store them flat. So when you're done using them, just very carefully tip them on their side with the bag zipped up, and just remember to very gently tip them back on the bottom before you open it up to use them again. So that should work pretty well. I do like having the dividers there. And if you're someone who only wants to craft from home, what you could do, if you're handy, is get some wood and build a box that will fit these exactly. Now, these two, the trays that I have the grays in, they are, they're a little different. These are, well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, are they 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're 6 wide. And this is 6 wide, but it seems like these are longer. Maybe, did I imagine that? Maybe I imagined that. Hold on a second. Yeah, these two gray ones are just a fraction wider than these, so you might need to work something out there. But yeah, you could build a box and that you could like put these into, and then these will hold them fine out straight as long as they've got something to, you know, to kind of hold this base part, like a wooden box. I think would work great. And the other issue that I found with these, let's look at the swatches really quick. I'll show you some artwork I did with these too before we're done, so don't worry. So this is our swatches. These are our swatches, I should say. I like the range. The warm grays, it seems like the undertones in the warm grays are not very consistent. Like warm gray 1 and warm gray 3 and warm gray 5 have like almost a peachy undertone to them. And like warm gray 0.5, 2, and 4 have like a more of like a taupey undertone to them. And then warm gray 6, 7, and 8 have kind of almost a plum undertone to them, but they're also very close in color. Like I don't feel like there's enough change between those 3 colors. So I guess if you like that tone, you could just, you know, use one up and use the next one. So those don't seem to have enough gradation between them. The cool grays are pretty good until you get to CG7, which looks very green to me. Like it looks like it maybe see that? It looks very green. I'm going to see if I have a green gray. Yeah, let me just swatch green gray 7 and see what green gray 7 looks. I see that one looks like, see, this looks like a cool gray. I'm wondering if the caps might be wrong on this. I'm going to switch my caps on this. All right, let's not mess ourselves up. I'm going to have to switch the caps and then switch the labels. That's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to re-swatch that. Look at that. You're watching me solve problems live. stick that there. So now I'm gonna X this out. So what my first impressions of these were like, oh, I don't know. But I think my impression of these is going to be, they're good for the price, but I don't feel like they're quite ready for prime time yet. You know what I mean? I think if you were to buy these for $100 and get 262 colors, I mean, I don't think you're going to do better, like price-wise, than that. But we'll look at the swatches a little bit more too in a second. I just want to get this. Yeah, this makes way more sense to have that be a cool gray. And see, that's something though. It's, would a beginner know that? Some people can't see the differences between undertones very readily, and that could be confusing. But I think this is definitely looks green gray. And so I just think like there might be some errors, like that error with the 50 that had like a dry chisel end and the color wasn't like other 50s that I've seen using this color family. It's just yeah, just something that seems a little weird. Oh, you know what? I gotta re-swatch that too. Anyway, brief aside. So I do like the variety of colors. There's a lot of skin tones. There's a lot of earth tones. There's a lot of peaches. It might be a little overkill on peaches, especially because they actually switch the color. I'm going to zoom in on this so you can see this better. They switch your color families along the way. So let's zoom in here. I can show you a little bit better. So up from here, from wine red. We all know wine red. It's in every marker set we have. It goes from 1 to 120 for your classic colors. You see that in a lot of like basic sets. Then we've got a few fluorescents. 3 of the fluorescent markers appear to be water-based, so I'm going to have to do a little blend test and see if that's the case. But 121, 123, and 124 seem to be water-based to me. They don't have the alcohol smell, and they just feel a little weird when I color them out. And if I look on the back, see how there's no bleed through? Maybe a little bleed through on that, but it's definitely no bleed through on 124 and 121. So I think those might be water-based, and that's happened before. I think the original Ohuhus might have had, like, their fluorescent colors were actually highlighters and not alcohol markers. When you're dealing in this budget realm of supplies, and we have companies ordering from different countries, and there's language barriers and stuff, sometimes you get some weird stuff happening. But the price is low, so yeah, that's kind of the part of the price you pay is planning on dealing with some of these issues. So when you get to, you've got your, up into usually the 100s is where you get more your pastel tones. We've seen that in Ardex, we've seen that in the old Ohuhus. Then you get into the 300s where you get more of the skin tones, and we've seen that in Ardex. And I think another company I have had the skin tones that were 300 numbers. Well, maybe it's just Ardex, but that's ringing a bell. And then we get our grays. The gray numbers are what you would expect. They're fine. And then they switch over to this BK. I don't know if the BK is supposed to stand for like beak, like art beak or what, but they are all kind of more soft, warm, neutrally colors. They're nice. They're pretty. They're really nice when I worked on some garlic. I'm going to show you in a minute, but it's just, there's a lot of them are kind of samey. And maybe that's what they meant about having some duplicate colors where it's a new venture for them. But like, it's like that 37 looks a lot like this, that 132, which also looks a lot like 25 and 26. So I think that if you're someone who loves to do portraits or anime or, well, maybe even a wildlife to an extent, because there are a lot of browns in here, and some deeper portrait colors, that might be nice. I don't know if it's, I mean, it's 262 colors. I think you're going to have pretty much everything you need. Plus, you would layer up a lot for portraits. I think there's some pretty portrait colors in there. But yeah, I think you get a lot of very similar colors as you're getting into this realm because the color system numbering changes, and it seems like there's a lot of repetitive colors. If you like yellows and peaches, this is a set for you. I didn't have any problems with the cool grays except switching that green gray around, but who knows, if you have this set, you'll have to let me know how your cool gray 7 and green gray 7 look. Let's see, the cool grays have a nice range. The warm grays are a little sketchy, but the warm grays would be nice for like wildlife or even some portraits and like stones, landscapes, things like that. So, I mean, I'm not bothered by it. I mainly just need a good cool gray range. That's what I will go to the most. And we also got the blue grays for even cooler grays. And we got the green grays, which honestly don't use too much, but you could layer that up with in like landscapes and stuff. If you need to push back something further into the distance, you can glaze over with the green grays, like mountains and fields and stuff like that. So there are our swatches. Like I said, I swatched it on marker paper and then marker cardstock from Woohoo, and then I swatched them on little stickers and put them on the things themselves. Now the stickers are not a perfect match to the marker paper, but that's alright. It gives me a good idea. Like this is BK70, which would be right there. So yeah, it shows up a little darker on the marker paper than on the swatch, but it's giving me a good representation, and it's a better representation than the cap. So I definitely say you'd want to swatch these, and because there's so many, I can just see I would get a headache from looking between my markers and the swatch sheet, so putting a sticker on there is the best way to do it. It does take extra time, but I think it's worth it. It's worth the effort. All right, so let's look at a couple artworks I did. Oh, one thing I want to mention is that I did have a little bit of spattering issue when I was uncapping. So if you do get, actually, if you get pretty much any brush tip marker, Woohoos are pretty notorious for this. Uncap them. If you uncap the brush end, a lot of times you will get spatter, and I did get that, especially reds. Reds tend to spatter more. So uncap it, not right over your artwork would be my suggestion, at least until you use them a bit so they're not so juicy. These markers are very juicy. They did not skimp on the ink, which I was really happy about, because sometimes you get markers and they just feel a little dry right out of the gate. Did not have that issue. Even the one where the chisel end was dry, once I whacked that marker to like let the pad drop in the chamber and I put the chisel end back in, it filled up in a matter of a couple minutes and was ready to go. So so yeah, no problem with ink fill. Maybe marginal damage on a couple tips, just like slight fraying on a couple tips. They weren't pushed in like far enough, I think, and I just flipped them around and they were fine after that. So you know, I feel like this set is nice. It's worth the money, but you just got to be prepared to do the swatching, do a little work, make sure you have everything that you ordered. You know, print out this sheet. There is an included swatch sheet, but it's glossy and it's small and it's not numbered. So that would be one improvement I would say. Artbeak, if you could include a swatch on like a marker cardstock that has the numbers printed on it, so people know what they're getting, and when they swatch it, they can tell if they're missing anything or not. Because that's kind of frustrating with a large set like this. You want to make sure if you're missing something that you know, so you can contact the company and say, hey, I'm missing number 230. Could you send me that one? Or whatever it is, you know, you want to know. I don't think it's acceptable, no matter what you pay for a set of markers, to have missing markers, dry markers, damaged markers that are like beyond like just a unfixable damage markers. Like I flipped the nib around on 2 of them. I don't think that's worth, I mean, it's not even like they were damaged and you couldn't use them. I know it's a fresh end on the other side, so I'm just going to flip it around. You know what I mean? I think doing a little work is fine for this price, but you know, if you've got dry markers, if you're missing markers, I don't think that's okay. That's my opinion. We welcome yours. And yeah, so I would print this out. Artbeak, please include a swatch sheet, because that would really level up this set, and have it on not glossy paper, have it on cardstock, and have it, if you can have it so you can just lay it in the marker and it'll fit in the case without having to be folded, that would be great. Like this. Actually, no, I'd have to bend it. I think it would bend if I tried to go that way. But yeah, that way you can check and make sure you have everything. But this is right on the Amazon sales page. You can find that pretty easily. All right, now for artwork, I did a couple drawings with these. And oh yes, we're going to go back and investigate those potentially water-based markers. This is one I did with and I just went right in with the markers and I started sketching with those pale shades, and I sketched my garlic. There's reference photos for this on my Instagram and on my blog and on my YouTube community tab if you want to draw this too. I used it for my sketchbook floozy challenge this week, and it worked great. And then when I was done, I went in with the fine liners that were in the kit, and the white gel pen that was in the kit, and everything worked wonderfully. I had no problems. Then I did a more advanced one. I say more advanced because blending reds is kind of hard. And I went in and did, this was from the liquid paint challenge on Instagram. And I did this little illustration here. And honestly, except for some splatter, which I covered up with white paint pen, they perform beautifully, and I have absolutely no problems with them whatsoever. And I have no hesitation to recommend them. But I do want to check on the, on a couple of those fluorescent markers, because I do have a feeling that they are not alcohol based. So I'm just going to use, I have so many junk pages in this book that I just, when I'm testing markers. So what I'm thinking are water based are the 121 and 124. And potentially, I think 123 maybe. I'm going to give it a sniff. Actually, that one might. Let me just color it out and see if I can see it through the back side. I could see that one through the back side, so that one's probably fine. It does have a slight odor. Let's try this one. Yep, that is not showing through the back side. Yeah, it's starting to pill the paper. Can you see those little bits? So that is definitely water-based. Absolutely no smell. I think I will pull this one out. And then let's try this one. I could feel it abrading the paper already. It's already starting to pill it, and no bleed through to the back. So these are water-based. That's a great way for you to test them. So these I'm going to actually probably give them to my daughter, see if anyone needs a highlighter for back to school, because they're really no use to me. So I'm just going to X those right off of my chart. So I could tell that those were water-based already. See, with alcohol markers, it's not going to pill the paper. So if I take that one that, oh wait, which one was it? Oh, did I take the wrong sticker off? Hold on. Getting a little pilling there. I think that's the, yeah, this is the water-based one. Whoops. I gotta put the sticker back on this one. Oh my goodness, guys. I'm a mess. There is a little, not that I often use color fluorescent markers. There is a little brush icon, and there's a little gray stripe on your brush end. So when you're using an alcohol marker, you can keep going over the same place over and over and over again, and it doesn't pill the paper. I'm not exactly sure why. I think it's because the alcohol doesn't expand the fibers of the paper like water does. Even though alcohol does contain some water, it shows right through and it puddles, but it doesn't pill. So that's one reason. And your alcohol markers are going to blend really well. So let's find a color that's similar to this. This is all my swatches. Let's see. Oh, right in front of me, Durfee. Let's see what would blend with this color. That's a tough one. Maybe we'll try. I'll try 173. So when you blend your alcohol markers together, I don't know if these will blend that well together, but might take a little try here. Actually, should go like that, probably. You can keep working them back and forth until you get the blend that you want. I think it's probably a little too far apart, but if you're doing that with a water-based marker, it would just pill the paper. So that would not be ideal. All right, so we do have almost like a throwaway because these two are not used. So your set might be different. On our swatch here, it did list the fluorescent markers in here, but yeah, we got a couple water-based ones. So I just want to make sure I don't have them in the marker case. But you know, if you have some other budget markers, check on the check on your fluorescents, because you may have some water-based ones. And I don't know how that happens. I mean, are they making the water-based markers and the alcohol markers in the same factory? That seems kind of suspicious. But I am going to make a note on my swatches that I removed those two. So, you know, you just got to do a little work with these budget products sometimes. But overall, I mean, I don't think there's any reason to avoid these if you're willing to put the work in. So let me see if I can recreate a spatter issue for you here. Actually, that one did pretty good. Sometimes with them you just get a little bit of a spatter. Oh, well, it's not that bad, I guess. We could do a little quick blending demo here. Let's find a couple colors that look to be pretty close together. Purples are usually your toughest ones to blend. Greens and yellows generally are a little bit easier. Browns are generally a little bit easier. So I'd say if you're gonna practice beginning to blend, I would probably go with some of your kind of warmer green colors. So let's maybe do 48. That's a pretty color. Let's do maybe 175. That one's actually darker. Make sure, oh, that, see, those colors don't look that close there. See, those two look kind of close. I feel like they need a bridge in between them because the values are so different, but the undertones of those two colors look really nice. So do I have something in between? And see, that's funny when you look at all these colors, it's like, okay, I need a mid-tone though. Maybe 59. That might work. That might work. So the undertone to that middle one is a little bit more blue, and those are two a little bit more yellow. So what I would do in this case, so if I want to blend these three colors together, I'd start with my lightest color, and just make sure I have my under there. Let's just draw a square. And obviously you'd work in whatever size that you're going to work in. You're probably not just blending a big area like this, but I would prime it with this lighter color. Then I would go in with my darkest color. And I would try to taper my strokes a bit so that I'm getting more ink at the beginning and less as it feathers out. And then I'm going to take that medium color and I'm going to go right over where they meet. But you can even go over the entire dark color. So if the colors have different undertones, they'll blend together a little bit. And then I'll go in with my lighter one. I'll work in from the other side though. And you can repeat this step as many times as you need to get the blend that you want. And as it dries, it's going to be a little bit more uniform. But very juicy markers, as long as you're willing to put in the effort to, make sure they're all swatched and everything's good with them. I don't think you'll be disappointed, but this is not going to be the, ready right out of the box situation that you're going to have with like a Hoo-Hoo or Arctics, which they have this swatch card. They have everything ready to go and a little bit better quality control, but a much higher price. Well, I wouldn't say much higher price tag, but they do have a higher price tag. So you're saving money. You just got to do some of the work on your own. But if you want to see any of the other markers that I mentioned, I have an alcohol marker showdown, and this is what this spreadsheet's from. That's why I wanted to go through and see about what other colors use the same ink numbering system. So if you do need refills for these markers, they're not going to, any of these budget markers are not, generally most of the budget markers are not going to come out with refills unless they have a higher price tag. Like Hoo-Hoos are more expensive, but they're starting to come out with refills. The reason is it's very expensive to sell open stock markers and to sell refills. If you're selling on Amazon as your main seller, Amazon charges high fees for the products that they stock, and you have to have a minimum in their warehouse. And so it just all adds up. And it's easy for them to stock one set of markers or two sets of markers, but if they had to stock 260 individual colors, that would get it very expensive, and you end up paying as much for a marker as you would from like a Copic from Blix or something. So, so that's why you don't see that with the budget markers. But because this runs on the Shinhan marker numbering system, you could buy Shinhan ink refills or Art & Fly ink refills if they happen to have the color that you need in a bottle, and that's a way you could refill your markers. The Hoo-Hoo brush nibs will fit these, so that's another thing you can do. If you damage a nib and you want to replace it, you could buy a set of Hoo-Hoo replacement nibs and replace it with that. So that's nice. And the chisel nibs are pretty standard. You could get chisel nibs anywhere and replace them if you damaged one, but I've never damaged a chisel nib in my life, so they're pretty indestructible. But there you have it. I hope you found this useful. I hope that if you have any questions, you'll let me know. But I think with a caveat that you might have a couple markers you have to do a little surgery on, and you need to make your own swatches because the color caps are not exact, but none of them are. And you don't mind spending some time getting to know your markers and sorting them and doing the swatching. And I highly recommend doing the swatch labels. If you don't have sticker paper, you can swatch them on cardstock or marker paper and just tape it to the marker. I highly recommend that when you have a set this big. They're not a bad set. Are they the best deal out there? Per marker, they might be. They might be. I'm trying to think what the Sanjokis were, because the Sanjokis set of 120 was an excellent deal. I think that was probably, I think they're probably about the same price. And it would just come down to how many markers do you want, right? The Sanjoki is 120 for about $43, And this is $262 for between $100 and $130, depending if the coupon is available. So it really comes down to what you need and what you have and what you like, just like anything. These are, you know, I don't think there's much new under the sun. It's just different stuff at different prices with different labels on them, but a lot of it's just the same. So with that, I'd say, yeah, go for it if you need some markers, if you're looking for a big set like this. And yeah, it's kind of more of the same, but the price is pretty tough to beat. Anyway, I want to thank you so much for watching today. Please give me a thumbs up before you go. And until next time, happy crafting. Bye!